And we are on page 1134 in the book. Okay. The study of behavior as it relates to evolving with the environment. Now, you need to think about everything we do in ecology in terms of relationships, flow of energy, what else? Evolution. So this is all going to lead into our study on evolution in the next unit. Evolution, I told you yesterday, the definition you should have is, this is the 9th grade version, it'll get more complicated. The change in genetics of a population, okay, so populations evolve, not individuals. Change in genetics of a population over time with respect to the, in response to the environment. So populations evolve, genetics gets changed over time in response to environment, okay, that they are in. Now, number one, natural selection plays a huge role in these behaviors evolving. We talked about behaviors like our rooster and chickens out in the courtyard. These are behaviors that they have inherited. They didn't know anything about these. They didn't hear them from anybody else. They crow, they cackle when they lay eggs, the whole 9 yards. Oh, and if you remind me, the chicken eggs, you can see them develop. They're developing, and also they're starting to move a little bit in there. So remind me at the end of class, and we'll try to check those out. We are officially on, I think, day 7. So A, B, and C. Different rates of reproductive success due to behavior. Reproductive success means what?
Success and reproducing.
How successful you are at having babies, yes. Strong traits survive and reproduce more to make more offspring than those with good traits. So the stronger your traits are, the more likely you are to survive and pass on those traits to your offspring. Weak individuals die off. Now, when it says weak, it's not necessarily just talking about physical strength. It could be weak in terms of it's just not good for the environment. And what may be weak in one location may be strong in another location. Like really thick fur back during the last ice age may not be as good as really thick fur during a global warming time. So it is relative to what your environment is. All right. Part B, foraging, organisms finding food. Now, when you're finding food, what are some things that you don't want to do?
Take a long time.
You don't want to take a long time, you don't want to take too much energy. Good. So, essentially, organisms should be doing their own kind of cost-benefit analysis here. I don't know, have y'all heard that with economics or, yeah. So, is the cost worth what I'm getting out of it? Am I walking 3 miles to get a handful of berries for the 1,500 calories that I'm using and getting out of that? So these are things that we have to consider, and animals and organisms consider these in the wild as well. Is the energy they're putting into it worth what they're getting out? So on, let's see, turn to page 1144. The crow and the whelk experiment. Now, in case you didn't know, crows are smarter than about half the people in our lunchroom. And they figured out what the optimal, this is called optimal foraging theory. Optimal means the best. So the best way to get their food. Now you've got crow and a whelk. A whelk is like a little seashell, from what I understand here. Yeah. So little sea snails, excuse me. So these little sea snails and the crow. So the crow takes these sea snails and they can't eat them with the shell on there. So what do? Drop it like it's, how does it go? Drop it from the top, make it drop. Yes. So they will drop it from the top down and see if it breaks open. And can't drop it from the bottom, right? And if it breaks, then they get the food out of there. They get the snail out of there. Now, what have they figured out in this process, you might ask? So that's a good question, Tay. They have figured out that from about 5 meters, that is the optimal place to drop it. So they go up about 15 feet, they drop it, it falls, and most of the time at 15 feet or 5 meters, it cracks open and they get the snail out. Now, what happens when they drop it from less than 5 meters?
It requires a couple drops.
Yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't break very well, and so they wind up having to go back again, and you might have to do like 4 meters, they might have to do that one twice, or 3 meters, they might have to do that one twice. And so in doing so, what's the drawback?
Wasting
Yeah, they're wasting energy. Sometimes they might fly up to 10 or 15 meters and drop it. And what happens?
wasting.
Yeah, they're wasting energy. They're going higher than they need to drop it. And in doing so, they're wasting energy. So you want to go as high as you need to break it, but where you don't have to come back and keep trying again. And you don't want to go so high that you're wasting energy in that process. So this is something that the crows are working on and figured out. Interesting. All right, next thing, reproductive fitness and energy. When we talk about fitness, what does that mean? Let's get physical. No, it's not talking about working out. Fitness means how well you are surviving in that particular environment. That is a evolutionary term. So how well you are suited to your environment. That whole survival of the fittest thing, the fittest means you're best suited for that environment. Anyway, positive learning is a reward and promoted in natural selection. So if you do well, provides food, it is rewarded, those traits are passed on. Learning, turn to page 1138 for me. Learning, we should all do that. On 1138 and 39, learning is a modified behavior as a result of past experiences. Usually gets better with practice or helps to avoid bad behavior, if you're smart, right? Like putting your hand on a stove eye, you learn very quickly that's not the thing to do. Or to talk while your parents are talking. Better be quiet, all right? I remember never mind, I'm not gonna say that on TV. All right, it's a higher, more complex brain function. Social confirmation influences behavior sometimes. I think this is very interesting in our day and time with you guys, especially on social media. There are so many like social cues on like how people learn how to act and what to do. Sometimes good or bad, and I'm not gonna get into too many details here, but people learn based on how they're influenced by people around them. They learn by how many likes they get on their Instagram page or TikTok. Can you imagine the number of likes influencing who you are? They're just numbers on a computer screen, Matthew. Remember that. It doesn't define who you are as a person. That's defined by your character and your integrity and your honor. Not likes on a computer screen. And if you guys are out there watching this, if you will like and subscribe. So, maturation. Developmental changes that occur with age. So as you grow older, you get more mature, you get smarter. And habituation. These are habits. Behaviors that occur even though organisms don't realize it's occurring because it's so routine. Good habits promote survival and reproduction. Bad habits, not so much. For instance, for you guys as teenagers, Fife, you getting this? So let's say Fife is playing on his phone or talking to his buddy instead of paying attention when he pulls out in front of traffic. Then that's a bad behavior that might result in him not living or ever reproducing. And if he pays attention and blocks out the distractions and looks both ways and pays attention to what's going on around him, then that's a good behavior that hopefully will help him live long and prosper. So, imprinting. I always try to do this on my baby chicks that we have, imprint on them so they know that I'm their father. So we're raising some baby chicks right now. And there's been a few good experiments I've seen of this. On page 1139, tell us about imprinting, Walker.
This refers to the learning that occurs during a critical/sensitive time period of development. It is permanent in that once it is learned, it is not forgotten because it is associated with survival. Ducks recognizing their mother or birds learning their experience, learning their species specific song.
Yeah, and so like if you think about penguins, you ever seen one of those March of the Penguins videos or like a nature video? Like the mama penguin and the daddy penguin take turns going out and getting food and coming back to the baby. Excuse me. And there's like hundreds of thousands of these penguins sometimes. And they come back and they all look the same. I mean, I've seen penguins, they all look the same. And they're like talking, and so you got to remember who's who. And then as the babies get older, they go off and play with their little other baby penguins, like in a little penguin nursery. And so they have to listen and find out, where their parents are as they're going back and trying to find them. So you got to imprint on who that baby is, so it helps you. That's a survival tool because you can't remember who your mom and dad are. I mean, how are you supposed to get that thrown up fish food? All right, now there's a couple examples of this. The gray goose, these geese imprinted on the ethologist Conrad Lorenz. These are kind of experiments that people have done as they've raised different animals. The same thing with what are those, whooping cranes. Imprinted on this dude with the flight suit and the ultralight plane. Now, I saw a really cool video of this with some turkeys and some guy down in Florida, I think it was. And he had raised a flock of turkeys and he had imprinted on all of them. He basically lived with these turkeys for a year. And they would follow him around everywhere like he was their mama turkey. And eventually, about a year into it, I guess they matured enough where they went out on their own. But they followed him around like crazy for about a year. It's pretty cool. I saw it on TV. Because I don't read books. So, associative learning on page 1140. You guys have probably heard of these. Is anybody in here taking psychology? What did you learn about these in psychology, Katie? What is classical conditioning?
Basically, this is the one where they have dogs and they teach them to ring the bell when they're hungry because it's like they get a reward every time they do the thing, so they want to do it more.
Yes, no, I'm not going to sing that. So anyway, classical conditioning, Pavlov, y'all probably heard this, where every time there's a bell, they start to salivate because they're hungry, and there's a stimulus associated with some type of behavior. Operant conditioning is a little bit different. Anybody remember that one? Katie?
This is Skinner.
Yeah, this is more the trial and error. This is where you have like a mouse that's going through a wooden maze, and when it encounters a lever, it hits on it, and then some food drops out. And so it learns by trial and error. So the next time it's a little bit quicker through the maze and quicker to hit the lever, and it gets the food faster. And so this is a behavior that they get and learn through trial and error. Okay? Interesting. Okay, different types of learning. Play theory or game. Ooh, that sounds fun. Let's see this one. Do y'all like to play? Play on, player. Hey, before we get there, let's a couple things I want to talk about. Back up here. Did we talk about the bees? I forgot the bees. Let's turn to 1137. The bee dance. If you didn't know this, bees, so when they come back to the hive, they tell their other bee friends, just like in Bee Movie, where to go get the food and where to find it. Now, it's not as complex as in Bee Movie. It's a little bit simpler. They've got a couple dances they do. Have y'all heard of this? Y'all know this? So they have the round and the waggle dance. I think it would have been better if they called it the wiggle and the waggle dance, but they didn't ask me. So the round dance indicates that food is nearby, so it's close. The waggle dance is performed when food is at a distance. The waggle dance resembles a figure 8. Distance is indicated by the number of abdominal waggles performed. In the straight run part of the dance, the direction indicates the angle in relation to the surface. So depending on the type of dance, so like the round dance is like, hey, you just step outside the hive and there's some food out there. So that's the round dance right there, just spinning around in circles. The waggle dance is very much a figure 8 shape here. And if you look down at the bottom, this is how they determine, like the other bees, where to go for their food and which way to go. Okay? So I'm going to read through these and y'all can follow along. Part A, food source is same direction as the sun. So in the picture, like if as they're doing their figure 8, that middle part of the 8, whichever way they're facing, that's the way that you should go toward food. Or maybe you switch it around and go the other way, go out the back of the hive to go get your food and go find those flowers. Or maybe it's off at an angle this way and go follow that out. So it's really an interesting way that bees have of communicating with one another in order to be able to find the food that's in the area. Anyway, talk about some courtship behaviors. We're not ready for that yet, though. Let's see. Turn over to page 1140. So there's some other associative behaviors. similar to trial and error and operant conditioning with the blue jay here and the monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies are actually toxic. I don't know if y'all know this. Monarch butterflies are toxic because they eat a large amount of, milkweed that has some toxic in it, and they incorporate it into their tissues as they're a caterpillar. And so when they're a butterfly, they've got this built-in like toxicity. And so usually what happens, unfortunately for this butterfly, he got ripped apart, and then the bird, you can see over here on this side, it started throwing up because it got sick. Now, that bird's not going to do what? It's not going to eat any more monarch butterflies or anything that looks like a monarch butterfly after that point. There's actually another butterfly, I can't think of the name, that resembles a monarch butterfly, and that's called mimicry, where it's mimicking the color and the shape of the monarch butterfly so that it's not eaten, even though it's not toxic. Anyhow, and the last one I wanted you to look at is the wasp over here. So this wasp that digs in the ground and has the nest, it uses different landmarks to figure out where it's going, okay? So the female wasp has these, this guy set up some visual landmarks, these pine cones, and so that wasp would see these pine cones and it would come in, know its nest there, and come in and get to the nest. Now, the dude, what's his name? Tinbergen. Yeah, he's like, I'll play a trick on these wasps. So you know what he did? He moved all these pine cones over. And when the wasp came in, what happened?
It wasn't a nest.
Yeah, her nest was not there. Can you imagine that trickery? How many of you guys, I really like, this is a good application of this since y'all are pretty young and just started driving. How many of you guys just started driving recently and you had difficulty figuring out where things were located?
Yeah.
Just as you drive around without using like Google Maps or something. It's difficult because you're in the car, and if you're not paying attention as you're growing up, you really don't know where to turn. You've got to look for certain landmarks, remember certain turns, or especially if you live kind of far away from here, it's kind of hard to remember where stuff's located. And so, did it take y'all a while to learn where things are? Like what to turn for? Miranda already knew everything, obviously.
I pay attention.
Pay attention in the car. What about you, Tay?
Well, like, I live in Mountville, so things around Mountville, I know where it is, but when you get out to Tuscaloosa, like downtown, I don't know where I am. So I just kind of go.
Yeah, my wife has lived here since 2002, and she still can't find her way around half the stuff in Tuscaloosa without looking at the map. It's one of those things where you have to get out and you have to really, like, as you're driving, you're remembering stuff. And the more you drive it, the easier it gets. It's almost, it just becomes habit at that point, that habituation where you see this, and your brain doesn't even really think about it. Like a lot of times you may drive somewhere and you ever get somewhere and you're like, I don't even really remember the driving process. You ever do that on a long drive? And so it's those habits of just kind of like seeing things, but you're not having to think about them so much because you're so used to it. All right, cognitive learning. Tomorrow, let's go a little bit into play theory. Play theory or game theory. Now, who likes to play? What kind of organisms? Like age-wise?
Younger.
Kids. Okay. Why do kids like to play?
Because it's fun.
It's fun. It's also learning. If you've ever seen like wild animals, like a lot of times they will wrestle each other. They'll get rough with each other, like little puppies or kittens and stuff. They'll pounce on one another. They're playing with each other, but the benefit there is what?
You're learning coordination.
Yeah, they're learning coordination. They're learning how to hunt, and a lot of those, like kids, like sneaking up on each other and stuff like that. I mean, if you're thinking about humans 300 years ago and you're out trying to find game or something, sneaking up on stuff and surprising it is a important part of hunting, and getting food that you need. So game theory is really important. You see this in dogs all the time. They're playing with one another as puppies. And so you've just got to be careful. Number C there. It can be potentially harmful. You don't want to get a little too carried away with your play behavior, it can be have negative consequences. All right, we'll stop there.